Hello, it's a privilege to come your way today. My name is Christopher Obebo, and I'm going to continue with the topic that we've been doing for some time, empowered to become. In the last podcast, I spoke about elements of power, that these are the things that God brings into the life of an individual when He wants to empower the person to become what he or she was ordained to be. The first element of power identified was enlightenment. And I did mention that enlightenment is actually the fusion of knowledge, of understanding, and wisdom. That when these three come together, you have enlightenment. And I equally mentioned that this was the prayer of Apostle Paul to the church in Ephesians when he said, the eyes of your understanding being enlightened. I did mention that some of us have enlightenment in various ways. But with respect to the level that you should be operating, you still have a long way to go. And that's the reason why you need to press for light. Some of you have things, abilities and talent, access and resources that God has brought your way. But then your story is like that of a person who is surrounded by what? By water, yet is still thirsty. The difference, what is causing that lack to still persist, is because the person has not been enlightened to be able to appropriate all of these resources around him or her for maximum impact. The second element of power I mentioned was what I talked about: relationship. Relationship. And I said this relationship could be in many ways. It could be from children to parent, it could be among relatives, among siblings, it could be from even superiors to their subordinate. And I'm going to continue the other forms of relationship that God brings into the life of a person in order to help that person to become what he or she was ordained to be. So today, talking about relationship, the emphasis will be on marriage. Will be on marriage. The last time I spoke about siblings, and I gave a very good example of Peter and his brother Andrew. That Andrew was the one that brought Peter to Jesus. In fact, Andrew and one other person, they were disciples of John the Baptist. John chapter 1, verse 40 to 42. So when John the Baptist saw Jesus passing by and announced that this is the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of man, Andrew followed. He followed and knew where Jesus was staying. And then, having known where Jesus stayed, the first person he went to tell was his brother Simon, and said, we have seen the Messiah. Come and see where the Messiah lives. So he not only told his brother, he also took him by the hand and ensured that he followed him to where the Messiah was. And I did mention that when they got there, the Messiah renamed Simon. Even Andrew that took him there did not get a name. So when you are praying for destiny helpers, please know that some of these prayers may have already been answered by God in the kind of family He put you to, in the siblings that He gives you. So count them also as destiny helpers. The emphasis for today, talking about relationship still, will be marriage. How is marriage, marital relationship, how is it an element of power in helping a person to become what he or she was ordained to be? And I'm going to give two examples in this case. The first example I will give is in the book of Ruth. When you read the book of Ruth, all the way from chapter 1 to chapter 4, the example of Ruth and Boaz. Now, we know what happened to Ruth. She got married, and after a while, her father-in-law died. After a while, her husband died. And her mother-in-law told her, I don't have anything left. I don't have any son. And even if I get pregnant now, I will not give birth now. The boy will not grow in one day. So she told her to go. So the narrative about the life of Ruth was that look at the person who is a widow, a Moabitess for that matter, and one who has no seed from her previous marriage, from her marriage rather. That was the narrative, and that was a very bleak narrative for a woman. However, when God wanted to help her to become what she was ordained to be, he orchestrated a marriage to Boaz. Now, that a marriage to Boaz was the one that realigned her destiny, changing all of the negative narrative that she was known with, that she had come to be acquainted with. All of those negative narrative was now changed because she married Boaz. And that was why, because of the change, she now moved rather to becoming a member of the family of Jesus. If you look at Jesus's genealogy, you will see that Ruth was mentioned there. And that singular marriage, marital relationship that she contracted with Boaz was what brought about a change in her life. Another examples of marital relationship as a tool of helping people to become is a couple in the book of Acts of the Apostles, Priscilla and Aquila. Both of them, they were tent makers. That was their trade. Now, when you look at the life of this couple, their journey into marriage, remaining as couples, help many other people to become who they were ordained to be. For example, in the course of their business, in the course of their work, they met a young man who was very passionate, very zealous, but lacked understanding, by the name Apollos. So this couple, Aquila and Priscilla, they approached this young man. They identified with him. They spotted the deficiencies in his life and helped to mentor him till the person grew to the point of maturity. They didn't only stop there. Even the early church, they helped to establish the early church by hosting them in their homes. Read the book of Romans, chapter 16, from verse 5. You will see that their homes provided a place of establishment for the early church. And look at the multiplier effect. The several families that were in the early church, who were established because they found a place for them to stay. Remember the level of persecution that was going on and them against the church. But these people provided accommodation for the church in their home. And because the church was established, there were now members who can now come to identify with the church. Now look at the ripple effect that that establishment, that these two couples experienced, that they provided for the church, and then also trickle down to the members of the church will now have on many people. Even Apostle Paul, in his journey to becoming, if you are going to look at the way his journey went in ministry, you cannot rule out the place of Aquila and Priscilla. So God, in helping people to arrive what they were ordained to be, He will bring them into some relationship. So when you are counting destiny helpers, please count your spouse as one of them. Count your husband as one of them. Count your wife as one of them. God purposely brought you into that union so that you can become what you were ordained to be. I can imagine if Priscilla was not married to Aquila, or Aquila was not married to Priscilla, that they were married to some other person. Now, individually, they may actually be zealous. Individually, they may actually be passionate about God, but they won't be able to do much because the other person they married to might constitute a cog in their wheel of progress. And after a while, after giving so many effort, that person may just want to let go. But God, knowing what lies ahead, knowing the many people that will benefit from this relationship, it brought the two of them together. And it now began to arrange their path to meet people. Because talking about becoming, a lot of times we focus more on the supernatural side, empowerment from on high. But God, being a very meticulous God, He will have that some things be put in place. So I want you to take a cursory look at all of the relationship in your life, your superiors, your subordinate, your friends, your relatives, the marriage you are in, or the person you hope to marry, and begin to look at how God has answered your prayer for destiny fulfillment and work towards it. And I see you getting blessed. Thank you so much for your time. Subscribe to Chris Odebo on YouTube and like, share, and comment. God bless you.